Named one of the Wall Street Journal's 10 best places to go in 2025, Traverse City is northern Michigan magic. Think sparkling blue waters, golden dunes, and of course, incredible food. This summer marks the debut of the Traverse City Food and Wine Festival, running August 20th through 24th. The event highlights both national and local chefs, including Tyler Florence, Ji-Hae Kim, Mei Lin, and Kate Williams, and features ticketed dinners, a grand tasting tent, and wine tasting. Visit traversityfoodandwine.com for details. What's the headline of your Barada piece?
Well, I mean, I think that was 2 years ago, fully. And it was just no more Barada.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, cosign. Yep.
And somehow that became a global piece for discussion. And that really took me by surprise. But I meant it.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. We're back with food writers talking about food writing. Tammie Teclemariam, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you. We've been chatting off mic. Little goss.
People can't hear about it yet.
Yeah, we've been talking New York Times Critics Search, but we will not get into that because we've been talking about that a lot on the show. But this is live on YouTube, so if you are checking it out on YouTube, definitely comment. And also on the podcast, if you're listening to it, you can go to our YouTube channel and check it out. How the heck are you?
I'm doing okay. It's the first very, very warm day, it feels like. And as soon as I got off the train, there was a Venti. And I was like, ooh. I'm going to get a scoop of ice cream when I'm done with this.
Oh, that's a great reward. But this is going to be your scoop of ice cream in the audio-video form, too. Because we have a lot to cover. I love your work. I've been a fan of your work for a long time. You've written for Taste.
I have.
Written some terrific pieces. You're now on staff at New York Magazine reporting. Before we get a little to your career, I want to always start the show about what we're eating right now. You start. You start. What's something good that you have, or maybe not good? We can go anywhere that you want to talk about.
Wow. Well, I did discover a source for injera in New York, and it's called Nunu's Market, and it'll actually be in an upcoming package that we're doing at the magazine in the summer package. But finding injera as a person as an Eritrean who is from the D.C. area where there is so much injera, and having lived in New York for years and years, to see a packaged stack of injera in the bag, just like in the world in New York, is such a rarity for me that it truly felt like a video game, like a treasure box in a video game. Yeah. Like I had finally just like, I can't even believe it. And then I took it home. And, while the Ethiopian restaurants in New York they get the job done. There aren't as many maybe that compete with each other. There's sort of one spread out into every neighborhood. And so it's really nice to be able to cook my own awesome food and have it at home with the bread that I have never, making injera is actually a skill. Like it's insane. Yeah. It's insane. You can't, it's really, really hard.
Yeah. And also pairing it with something really cool. And I was mentioning before we rolled, you have nice skills in the kitchen. I follow on Instagram. And what did you make to pair with the injera that you discovered in New York?
Yeah, I love to cook. And actually cooking Eritrean food isn't something that I did growing up much. But I think what I did do is just watch so much of it happen that I know the secrets. I know the secrets that were not even spoken to me. And it's like when I sort of find a recipe or sort of, I watch a lot of YouTube when it comes to trying to put together my version of Eritrean food. And there's a really good book by Johannes Gebreyesus, Ethiopia, that I've read some recipes from that are really good, but it's just like that little extra something. So I finally really nailed my churro recipe, I think. And that one's special. And I bought some more churro as well at Nunu's Market, which it's uptown. I forget the street. I think it's like 168th off the one. But it's I just, getting to make churro with all the flavor in it, and especially adding the esme, the butter. Yeah. That's something that a lot of restaurants don't do. And somebody once told me in Tigrinya there's an expression that's like gilding the lily, but it's like adding the butter to churro. Yeah. It's like, but actually to me, butter is so essential, and sometimes you don't see it. And that really makes it like a supple, silky, just
It's probably like a technique with heat, right? Is it more of that, or is it more about just the style of integration? How you
I think a
get the
lot
butter
of
in there?
places try to keep their vegetarian dishes vegan.
Oh, I see.
And so that preference, while it does definitely, and in New York, truly, like to me, like having 15, if that, Ethiopian restaurants is very, very few. And every time I go to DC, somehow there are even more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like, how can this suspension be so super saturated? But
Yeah.
they keep opening new ones. And the best part about Ethiopian Eritrean food is meat to me.
Mm.
Raw meat, kutfo, or even just like teretsaga, like people just eat hunks of raw meat,
Mm-hmm.
dip it in some awaze, dip it in some mitmita, and then just cut a little piece off, eat that with some injera.
Awaze, I got to try some awaze when I was in Ethiopia, and I still think about that unique flavor, the spice, sourness.
Yeah.
It's really, and I've tried to find it. I haven't been able to. I
I
bought
mean,
some when I was there.
it's definitely something that you would make at home and also just like cure. Like the
Exactly.
awaze in my house was like, it was, I mean, it just existed
Years,
for
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
I still have some that my grandmother made before she died over a decade ago.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
We could talk all day about Eritrean food but we have a lot to cover. We have a lot to cover. I'll just talk briefly about what I've been eating. I went on a slice crawl. We spoke at length last week or last time about the New York Times 22 slices piece, and I just had to put eyes on it. I had to go out there, and I wrote about it on my Substack, and I had a really good experience at F&F. They're doing like a plant-based, I mean, it's like a vegan slice with green olives and just these very like thinly sliced Chris Bianco Napoli tomatoes and with great olive oil. I just love that really beautiful bread that they're doing there at F&F. I went back to Scars, and breaking news, Scars is good, but it is now on my New York City slice podium. It is the top 3. That slice, just the cheese. I'm not a big honey boy or a hot boy fan. I just don't like that combo. It's just a preference, but Scars is really nice right now.
Yeah, I mean, since they moved to the second location, it definitely has a different feel. I went there a year ago, I think, just and had a pie with a couple of people, and yeah, it was hitting.
Yeah.
And I think also, the thing about slices is like they are often about opportunity. Where are you going to be when you need a slice of pizza?
Agreed.
And I'm often on the Lower East Side. Late at night, ready to have a slice, and I wish F&F were a little closer to me.
Yeah, I know.
I'll go out of my way, but Carroll Gardens, it's a little pastoral compared to.
Yeah, the gardens are really hitting this time of year, but I went out with Mauricio Leo. That was great. So, Tammie, let's talk about food writing. Actually, before we get to that, I want to actually back up and talk about your job. I forgot about that. I want to hear about what you're up to at New York Magazine, kind of like your remit, your goals. We read you all the time on Grub Street Online and in the pages. But like, what is your big goal with your work there?
My big goal. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, my title is Underground Gourmet.
Yeah.
So I replaced the Robs, but I'm only one person. And so I do a mix of things. I do a mix of packages, sometimes, more interviewee pieces or profiles. So that's currently what I'm working on for next week. I just had a meeting with Eddie Wong. He's doing a pop-up over the summer at the Flower Shop.
Cool.
And it's kind of a mix of like the food that he's been cooking since he got married and had a kid. And he's sort of working with olive oil now. So there's a couple things. So I tasted some dishes there. So that's something. I write a lot about openings, but I also do kind of trend pieces and sort of just taking the temperature on what we've been seeing. Sometimes I do a rant. They write about that in the Daily Mail or whatever.
Oh, you get some aggregation from the Daily Mail?
Oh my gosh. When I wrote about burrata, that was still
what's the headline of your burrata piece?
Well, I mean, I think that was 2 years ago, fully. And it was just no more burrata.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, cosign. Yep.
And somehow that became a global piece for discussion. And that really took me by surprise. But I meant it.
How are you keeping track of openings, Tammie? Do you have a method that you're like tracking, not just from PR, but like from just the streets talking,
Hmm.
from Instagram? I mean, Eddie's pop-up, that's great scoop. I hadn't heard that. So nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was a bit of PR, and this has happened. They pulled this together in 3 weeks
Yeah.
apparently, and it's already on Resi. But
Yeah.
yeah, I look at the PR emails.
Sure.
I try to
Me
keep,
too.
but I try not to rely on them too much. I'm a big fan of Google Maps,
Yep.
and I think like because I'm so like I'm always looking everywhere, and then also just getting on the ground. And I always try whenever I can to sort of make a longer walk out of whatever I'm doing, just to sort of
Yeah.
keep tabs. But you can't keep tabs on everything. I think TikTok, Instagram, social media take you outside of what you're able to do as a single person, which is good. But it's true. I really, once it's somewhere, it's like it's almost too late. But I think I really try to write about places almost as soon as I find out about them. So it's like, with the kind of like expedited energy of just feeling excited about something new, and that's usually like why I can just write about places before they've kind of developed a
It
reputation.
just happens to
Yeah,
cross your
if I
path.
taste something good,
Yeah.
I try to just get it out there now, and not sit on it. Or if it clicks for me, if I think I can make it work, yeah.
I loved when you were writing the Year I Ate New York column. You were here and we chatted about it. I loved the way you would dine solo and
Mhm.
process the room and process the vibe. Do you
Mhm.
still find yourself doing that a bit with this Underground Gourmet role?
Absolutely. I do a lot of solo dining, and I think that actually finding people to dine with is one of the hardest parts of any critic job.
Yeah,
It's actually like a social
It's a nightmare, man.
Rolodex. Like it's a part secretary gig to have, 3 extra people at the table, and it allows you to order things. Like
Yeah.
there's so many things that I just never get to try because and it's not like I'm afraid to order too much food for like one place setting. I'm just, I just say I'll take it home with me or something.
Yeah.
But, it's different. But I think that, that is okay for my job because I'm less of a critic. Or sometimes I
Yeah.
critique
There's
places,
criticism in
but
your writing, of course, but you're
yeah.
like profiling.
I'm not usually like, saying I tried the whole menu unless I actually tried the whole menu.
Are you rolling with Matthew Schneier? Are you guys going out on reviews and sometimes?
We've gone out a couple times,
Yeah.
but honestly, it's like it's hard because when all of your friends are food writers,
I know.
everybody's working on their own thing.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to be on their thing, and I don't want I don't want to be scooped. I got friends at the Times. I can't just invite them to what I'm doing.
I feel that a little bit. We're not at Taste doing any kind of news beat reporting like that, but when I was doing that work, yeah, you can't, you have to keep it close.
You got
Keep it
to
off
keep
social.
the restaurant close. You got to keep your thoughts close.
Interesting.
You
You mean just don't be exposed to hot takes at a table if it's like 4 food writers going to that new, Szechuan spot,
Mhm.
getting some thoughts in your head, maybe.
Well, I mean, I'm about to have dinner with a couple of food writers tonight, but we will. One, it's a place I've already written about, so.
Okay.
And then I think our beats are different enough, but it's like there's some work related thoughts that I won't be sharing with them, but they're
Yeah.
still developing.
I'm going out with some food writers tonight as well.
Oh, where are you going?
We're going to Ada. The
Oh.
new location. I've been curious. I'll report back on 3 things or something. Where are you going?
I actually already went.
Yeah.
to
Oh,
Ada.
yeah. Obviously you did. You did your job straight. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm working on an Indian restaurant feature that will be coming out soon.
Oh, great.
But where am I going to? I'm going to Le Chien,
Oh, cool.
which I wrote about a couple of weeks ago, and it's a new restaurant from a French social media and Canal Plus cable TV star, and Alexia, and her husband Ronan, who started a really, really fancy restaurant on Carmine Street.
Yeah.
And I think they're French enough to pull it off, and I'm very excited. There's a Petivier, I wanted to write a piece once that was like Pithiviers is on the tip of everyone's tongue.
That's funny. It's a good headline.
Thank you.
Book it. Well,
It didn't get used. So
Yeah.
I'm putting it in the world.
Yeah.
But
Explain what that is. What is
a Pithivier? It's like a round Wellington,
Yeah.
but with a little bit more going on in it, or a layered situation.
Yeah.
So theirs is a surf and turf style.
Whoa.
I believe it's eel and ground pork.
Wow.
Yeah. So all I'm having for lunch is the ice cream cone, and then
That's a high
I'm
wire
saving
act.
myself for dinner.
Ground pork and eel. That is a high wire act. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to some food writing. We have a few stories I want to discuss. The first one is from New York Magazine. The City is ready for some froyo by Rachel Sugar. Terrific journalist, has written a bunch for Taste and New York Magazine. To summarize, Chef Amin Kanima of Madison Fair is reluctant about the success of his frozen Greek yogurt bathed in Dubai-inspired pistachio sauce. I didn't get it, to be honest, is a quote. I was like, okay, whatever, this is going to die out soon, but it didn't. It just keeps coming back. I think that there are some reluctant chefs out there who get these big hits and don't necessarily want it there. But Sugar notes that froyo has had this era in New York, 2006 to 2013. I think for years, people enjoyed froyo, but then people moved on to green juice. I think that's a great call. But in the piece, Rachel profiles the CEO of 16 Handles, who took over in 2022 with YouTube star Danny Duncan. His name is Neil Hirschman. Danny Duncan is known for, this is a good one, merch line that includes Virginity Rocks t-shirts and MILF Patrol hoodies. Interesting little tidbit there. But 16 Handles is expanded around the country in Texas and South Carolina. And really, the point of this is that froyo is back in a big way. I talked about it on the Tasteland podcast. But I want to know what your take is on froyo coming back to New York in this piece.
Well, I would argue that it didn't lose out to green juice, but ice cream, because that was a pretty heavy ice cream era. Because we saw, the rise of the $10 pint and just Butterfat, Oddfellows, Morgan Stearns, Van Leeuwen. It was really like a flavors era. And yeah, maybe now, the ice cream is just a little too heavy. No, I've actually tried Madison Fair.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan. I was there last week, and I just was stopping by, and I've talked to Amin before. And it's true, he has a lot of culinary training, and he a lot of experience. He's from Sweden, but I think his background is mixed. I think he's either Tunisian or Moroccan in background. And he's a comprehensive pastry chef. Before they got famous for this frozen yogurt, he was making, boutique-style gâteaux and entremets and stuff. And that was all, a part of the Madison Fair catalog. He was making chocolate bars, I think. And then this yogurt just took over. And so now when I went back to the store, it's actually completely divided now. And he principally is just yogurt in the front, and then they do Swedish gummies in the middle. And so it's a very, very popular place for students after school. If you go there at 3 p.m., it is the Upper East Side's candy shop. And he is a candy man up there. Like he knows all the kids, and as he's like giving them frozen yogurt, he's like, hey, how are you? How's school? Like, how's it going? They have their little favorite gummies. But yeah, the yogurt itself, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It tastes like, it definitely tastes like it was made from Greek yogurt. Like it sort of has that weight.
Tang.
It has the tang, but it's definitely much tartar. Like it's probably like a 2%. But there's a density to it. There's still some ice crystals in there. Just enough sweetness. But you really feel the nutritional quality of it being yogurt, and then that pistachio crunchy topping, and that's where you get the richness from in this yogurt. And it's crazy, like kids love it. And when I was there, I saw a kid dragging in her grandmother. Kids would just come in by themselves, and then this woman was putting up a fight. And she's like, $15. That's really expensive. Can I have a taste? And I mean, it's like, no. You know,
No, it's like we're talking
it
about
is what it is.
45 cents a bite here,
Yeah.
lady. So no,
Yeah, and it's a small operation compared to Butterfield, which is just on the other block around from Madison Fair. There are actually two Butterfields. There's one on Lexington as well. But the Butterfield yogurt and that one, it's less expensive. The line is definitely much longer. It's more dairy-like. And I looked at the rest the ingredients on their website. It had when I saw that it contained, I think it was whey protein. That made a lot of sense to me texturally. Like it really does, it holds its shape. It's giving creamy. There's still there's a tingle of a tang, but not too deep. More sweetened. It's more, all-purpose sort of crowd pleaser type.
I could see why the chef is a little reluctant, knowing this deep pastry background, and to be known by like the Daily Mail back to that. Like in the aggregated article about being like the cool froyo.
Right.
I could see why someone would maybe not want to own that fully and just be like, all right, we'll roll with this thing.
Yeah.
But also money's money, so that's a good thing for that company, right?
Money is money. I mean, it's such a small shop. It's even smaller than the room that we're recording in.
Yeah.
And if he could hire more people and expand it, he probably would. And I think that's definitely something he's thinking about. But they stopped. He stopped making so many other things. And I think he's looking forward to a future maybe where he can expand and sort of achieve, a balance with his creative and financial pursuits.
Next story. This is a good one. Definitely took over online and social. Gen Z doesn't want to start a bar tab by Paula Mejia in the New York Times. I'll just start with a quote. Many 20-somethings prefer to close out and pay after every drink, no matter how many beverages they end up ordering. What a statement in the New York Times. Why? Well, Paula has three ideas. First, a generation that consumes less alcohol than older drinkers opening tabs can seem exorbitant. Two, they have become accustomed to one-and-done transactions, usually with a simple tap of their phones. And considered purchasing drinks at a bar to be no different. And three, they feel anxious about losing track of their spending by leaving their credit card behind the bar. The piece quotes Taylor Price, who is a financial podcaster, who says, many of us say, I'm spending $40 tonight and that's it, which I guess makes sense. You're not going to want to leave your card at the bar and keep ordering. I like this part of it. I'm going to get your take, Tammie, soon. Bartenders are pissed. I'm not sure. This was maybe debated online. I think Al Barber, who manages the bar at the Prince in Los Angeles, great little restaurant bar there. For each moment that one of my guys is standing there fumbling with your cell phone trying to unlock the code, that's time that is missed out on serving the next person when they're 3 deep on a Friday night. I could see why it would be annoying if you're doing transactions every time. I wonder, Tammie, just like, do you think this is really happening?
Do I think this is really happening? Are there no Gen Z bartenders?
Good point.
Are there no Gen Z places? I mean, it could be true. Like I'm glad somebody's taking the heat. Millennials really can, it just became farcical once most of them started turning 40.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I do believe that certainly that generation missed out on a lot culturally just from the pandemic, just experience-wise.
Yeah.
And then taste-wise, just figuring out what you like to drink and sort of being able to do that in an affordable way is really tough. And now every single restaurant has a custom cocktail menu, and none of these drinks necessarily make sense. And it's like, $20 for a drink, maybe it is worth requesting the service to be able to close out anyway.
I agree. I think you nailed it exactly, my thought. I think when you're thinking about bars in one general category, it's missing the point here. I think the piece profiles cocktail bars, where these are really expensive drinks for many people, and they sometimes takes 10 minutes to make it. Not 10, maybe 6 minutes to make it. And yeah, I could see if you're buying a round and it's like $89 pre-tip, you're going to want to close out that tab because maybe you want someone else to grab the next round. So I'm not sure. I guess the Prince is both a cocktail bar and a volume bar, but I think the writer was maybe being a little hard on a whole generation with this.
Well, that's basically a category of news these days.
It is a category of news. It gave me some thought though, and I actually liked the piece a lot just because it it's a creative angle on life in bars. And I think talking about bar culture, Punch does a great job with their work by talking about not just like what's in the glass, but like what's happening inside the walls of a bar.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's either like you're in a dive bar, in which case it makes sense to pay per drink because, it's cash. Or you're in some kind of condition like that where your drink's not going to take that long to make either. And so, maybe the bartender would be backed up, but like you can feel rushed. But I think this is a generation that was not here when cocktails came back the first time, and just how refined that experience used to be every single time. And that's definitely something that has been lost in the premium cocktail experience, where it's like, like bartender rushing out to make drinks, no contact, no interaction. Like it's just, it used to be a tighter experience, and maybe it could still stand to be if it's that much of an issue. And then, in that article, when they did the math on credit card charges, I wasn't necessarily convinced by the extra 30 cents per $100. I guess, maybe if it's 30 cents per $10 or $20 transaction, but it's probably at least going to be a $20 transaction.
Yeah. It wasn't, the math didn't really quite pad the argument, I'll say.
Yeah.
For these high volume bars. I want to talk about one of your stories, a chain opening that's worth getting excited about for New York Magazine. And you wrote a really great piece about single chain locations for global franchises and chains. Izakaya, Season, I'm Donut, and Grandma's House were mentioned. And it brings up a good question about what are the aims of these operators? Are they opening to try to draw business for future franchises? Are they marketing? Do they want to have an anchor in New York just to say they do for their overseas investors? Really smart piece. I'd love to get a sense of how you reported it and what you found out.
Yeah. I think that piece ties into a lot of places that I've written about recently, where, it's the first sort of flagship outlet of these foreign brands. And I think it's, in one way, just non-American centric globalization. The places that you mentioned have I don't know the stats on I'm Donut. No, I'm Donut has 2 locations in Tokyo.
In Tokyo, yeah.
That one's peculiar.
A little bit of an outlier, but it has
It's more of a art project at this point.
We tried them here. We had them in the studio.
Oh,
the BLT one not hitting for me.
Oh, I hadn't heard about that.
Not hitting for me. Just gonna be honest, they were very kind to send us the donuts. They were quite nice. I don't know if I'd wait 2 hours in line. But.
Yeah, but it had them. Is it mochi?
Mochi. Is
okay?
Good. Yeah.
So the texture is interesting.
Very nice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm interested. Waiting and then in Times Square. No, thank you. But in terms of Seasun and Grandma's Home, I wrote about Thai Air, a sauerkraut fish restaurant. When I wrote about sauerkraut fish in March, and that restaurant has, I think, 600 locations across the world. And so, we're talking about places that are big deals. And, if there can be Taco Bell in Gijón, Spain, there should at least be, sauerkraut fish in a mall in Flushing. It's just a feature of this great global world. And then we want to be in New York because, yes, it's a flagship location, but also there's so many students. And you see, that a lot of these locations are flourishing around colleges. And when you go to these places, Hey Tea, the cheese tea chain that has exploded in locations even in New York in the past 2 years. They opened their first location, I believe, at the end of 2023. And now they have at least a couple dozen. And there are crowds outside every time I pass one. And, it's these little things, a treat, cheese tea, donut. Izakaya Seasun has very youthful energy. It's covered in these kind of like cartoon cats, very playful. And then, the drinks are sort of highballs, blue Hawaiian, things with
fun.
Syrups.
Is it like mostly is like izakaya cuisine? It's like, and
it's a Korean take on Japanese izakaya.
Interesting.
So that's like another nice thing where it's like you're getting like these Korean chains in their like Japanese emulating form. So it's like 2 degrees removed from Japan, but you still have, sashimi and, probably tempura and,
Yeah.
mappo and stuff like that. But then the hot pots were leaning a little bit more.
Jungal, like Korean style.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a good mix. And I mean, I thought it was a very fun place. It had great energy, and it was almost completely populated by young Koreans on dates in groups, or just young Asians.
What neighborhood?
This was, I want to say it's around 28th, but not quite K-Town.
So like K-Town adjacent, those like
Yeah.
that south pocket.
Yeah.
Down there where Kokodok is in that more direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool that these restaurants, especially if you have like 600 locations globally, they clearly have their design dialed from a corporate level.
Mhm.
So you're getting like a really templated version of something that is in Asia or somewhere else for the American audience. And if they're uncompromising in their approach, it's very unique.
Mhm.
And you've mentioned that for the izakaya, that it felt really cool and playful. I love seeing that in New York, to be able to like be transported to Taipei or to Seoul. And that's because they have scale and they have like the right people to build it versus a New Yorker doing it with American tastes and making it feel more American. It excites me. It's a cool piece.
Yeah, thank you.
Our last one we're going to go over is a big one that dropped just this week. The 100 Best Restaurants in New York. It's by the New York Times, and it was written by Melissa Clark, Priya Krishna, and Brian Gallagher. This is the list that originated in 2023. Pete Wells kind of kicked it off. I remember I had Pete on the week he released it, and that was a great conversation. And I think Pete put his spin on it. I'm going to read a little bit from the intro. In the past few months, we've clocked dozens of hours on the subway and bought several new larger pairs of pants. We each returned with winners, then continued to whittle our selections down until we had a list that represented the city's culinary greatness across boroughs, cuisines, price points, and styles. And I want to list the top 10 because this is like something that it was a little bit of a change. Previously, they were listing 1 through 100. Savagely, last year they showed for each of the ones that had previously appeared their rise and their drop with fun red arrows upward and green arrows upward and red arrows downward. That was kind of savage. They also left off, which is crazy because this was like the thing I went to, who didn't make it on the list, like who was dropped out. So like they were merciful in a sense to keep that out of this mix. So it was a top 10 in order. I will list those. 10 is Tatiana by Kwame Onwuachi. That's actually down from number 1. 9 is Szechuan Mountain House. 8 is Sushi Show, which is a new addition. 7 is Penny, a new addition. 6 is King. 5 is Haas Snack Bar, a new addition. 4 is Kabawa, a new addition. 3 is Le Bernardin. 2 is Automix or Automix. We negotiated and discussed how you say that. I think it's Automix. 1, the top restaurant in New York, is Sema. And I'll just go over quickly some new additions. New additions to the list include 425 by John George, Kisa Keen's. Interesting. Sofre, which was a shocker to me that it was never on the list. Sushi Naz and White Bear, which is a walk-up selling pork wontons in Queens. Now, Tammie, a lot to unpack here. I'm sure you have some thoughts. What did you think about the list?
What did I think about the list? I think it's interesting that the reason that they didn't rank them after 10 was because 2 of them were working on the list. And I guess my question is should it be one person working on the list at all? I mean, it's so hard to grasp your head around. And as a person who actually does this kind of eating, I'm so thankful that this is not a task that I have to do. I think like the New York Magazine version of it would probably, be a more specific facet or something before you make a list. And it really does take the times to be able to do this. So, yeah, I mean, I think, some people might call the lack of rankings cowardice, but, I can see, sort of being in a different year and probably people who might not do it again next year, why they would go for this way. So, yeah, then it does prohibit the plus or minus rankings, which was definitely one of the funner, more dramatic features of the last years. But, who knows what they'll do in the future.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like, Tatiana's jump, but clearly still recognized within the league, which I think is fair. You know, I don't know. I haven't been.
Yeah.
I will say that I have heard such 50-50 reviews that I don't even I could not say.
I think that's acknowledged in a drop from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
That's acknowledged, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, but you know, I guess it still touches on what they want it to say. It's such an interesting range of prices too.
Yeah.
On the front, on the top 10.
Mountain House.
Yeah.
And Atomics and Sema at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and it makes sense. You know, it's having a New York an Indian restaurant as number one in New York and I also haven't been to Sema yet.
Yeah.
But you know, I will let its reputation speak for it. And
I was surprised Bungalow wasn't in the top 10. Because Bungalow, you know, got such a rave in the Times by Priya and one of the critics of this list. And word on the street, man, everyone loves Bungalow. Lots of people have told me about positively. Shaking your head.
I'm nodding.
Nodding. Sorry, that is
processing.
A nod, not a shake. We are doing this on video. On YouTube, once again, you can check it out. That is more of a nod than a shake. You're right. I was incorrect. Yeah.
I was chewing it up.
Yeah.
You know, I had an early experience at Bungalow, and I was by myself, so I just sat at the bar. And I would say that it does not impress me as like the most important Indian restaurant.
Yeah.
Or even like top 10 in the conversation. Just a side note, have you tried Chatti by Reggie Matthew?
I haven't tried that yet.
That place is great, Garment District, and sometimes he's in town, and he's a celebrity in India. Yeah. And actually, this is another example of a chain. Yeah. But that's not related to this list. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's a good mix. I think it's such a deep project because, yeah, it definitely does have to say something about where the city is at, and then also speak to their coverage over time, and then also hopefully surprise people in some aspects. But I don't know, Szechuan Mountain House.
Yeah,
that one for me. It's like I've been.
You gotta pick your ones to kind of break through. I'll just say I acknowledge the difficulty of ranking 1 to 100, and that's really. If it's being read as 1 through 100, if like 98 is worse than number 45, that's really, really difficult, even for one person who has a singular view of it. And I was kidding in the intro when I was saying mercifully leaving the ups and downs, but I think that was a good choice to not show the heat, because I think that you're on the top 100 restaurants should be a positive. You shouldn't see anything negative or a red arrow going down next to your name. If you're in the top 100, you're doing a good job.
Unless it's Teresi.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan myself. I think I don't get it. We have lots of guests who come on the show and say it's the best restaurant. And I really don't see it. What do you mean by when you brought that up?
Just that, well, you know, speaking of like whether or not it's in good conscience to list generally it would just be restaurants that have lost their places. And I think, you know, it's true that not all of the restaurants on the list are on a fair playing field. Like Definitely. It's much more of a win for some restaurants than others. And some restaurants really aren't asking for this position of sort of just being toyed around as like, oh, like they're, you know, X spots lower than they were last year, you know, like, yeah, say White Bear next year, you know, isn't on the top 10 or something. And so it's less meaningful, or maybe, it would be more detrimental. But a restaurant that is, you know, well funded, well publicized, is more capable of taking the punches of whatever their position change may have been.
Yeah.
I don't know if they weren't even on the list this year. I didn't think to check for them.
Are we sure Keen's is a good restaurant? I'm that's the one I don't understand. Like the mutton, if it's really mutton, that's to be debated by maybe a journalist. Just
right.
Throwing that in the ether.
It used to be the other problem where they're like, is it really lamb?
Or lamb as well. There's that issue too. I've never really had a great experience there. I've only been a few times. It's been like 2 or 3 years. I just keep seeing that as like the one steakhouse that gets mentioned in these lists. And it seems like there's a deeper bench here in New York, and we just keep giving Keen's the flowers.
Yeah.
Have you been recently? I'm just asking, honestly.
I haven't been recently. I
Yeah.
went during Year I Ate New York, and then I think
Yeah.
in the past few years, I think I've been for like a sandwich at lunch. I think it definitely does deliver on sort of the Mad Men idea of a steakhouse,
Sure.
which is what a lot of people want to get. Um, I
Yeah,
I
I get
do
that.
like the idea. I when I went last, I remember ordering all the potatoes, and I think we liked them all, so that was
Yeah.
really nice. But yeah, I mean, steakhouse is interesting because like so many restaurants just have a steak anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of where I was leading this
Hmm.
to designate a steakhouse when you have like you can get incredible steaks.
Was St. Anselm on the list?
No, I don't.
They might have been like shut down because they just had that fire.
Oh, I didn't even know that. It's too bad to hear. I don't have the list in front
They're
of me.
back open. So
Okay, that's good.
you went through all the emotions in one.
Yeah, you like made my head go spin a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, the butcher's steak is probably, I think it's under 40 still, but I haven't been in a while, but the last time I went, the butcher steak was the butcher steak. I think I don't want to say whether or not, it's hard to, I can't remember what's on the list.
Yeah, no, we can't recall. We don't have it in front of us. I mean, Sofre not being on the list previously is crazy to me. That place is amazing, and it's been on the Beard's top 5 for the past couple years, and I think it's just such a terrific restaurant. I've had great experiences there.
The decision to put Keen's on after they got bought, though, that is really the pinch.
It's interesting.
It's interesting.
I just want to give credit to the folks on this, Priya and Melissa and Brian. I really liked the video that they published. I don't know if you saw that, where they kind of explained their methodology. It was a beautiful video. It was really well done. And I just think that, like, show your notes if you can. I think that it'll educate folks who are sniping about how much work goes into this. No one wants to hear a restaurant critic complain. I know you realize that. And it is quite arbitrary in some ways, and it is based on personal taste as a critic. I think that I'm going to link to that video in the show notes because it's important just to see that they're out there doing the work and actually considering the methodology. And I thought that video did a good job. So.
The behind the scenes there, it's been nice.
They've been doing a lot of that at the food desk, and I think it's smart. Well, those are our stories. I mean, you've got some great writing coming out in the summer. I don't want to spoil a show. We'll definitely, you got to check your Instagram and check your socials to read that. I want to continue our tradition with this segment. What would you pitch 1997 Graydon Carter? Meaning, in 1997, Graydon Carter was assigning stories between $100,000 and more, contracts that lasted years, and you could write one or two stories. I mean, we're talking about $200,000 here, people. Great time to be a magazine writer. Tammie, what would be your pitch to 1997 Graydon Carter?
All right. Well, first of all, it would have to start with A Flight on the Concorde.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm listening to the audiobook of his autobiography, and the Concorde gets mentioned, it seems, whenever he has the opportunity. And, that would have been my chance because it is no longer. And I think that I would love to do a sort of country tour of old English candy.
Yes.
And
love this idea. Oh, English toffees and candies. I love that.
This is a recent obsession of mine. It started when I was ordering some Cadbury cream eggs, the English variety, because somebody had told me the English ones are so much better. And I do love Cadbury cream eggs, but the last few times I've had them, they really, I don't know, they didn't bring me as much joy as I thought they should have. And then
the chocolate was just not premium.
Exactly. And it is true. The English ones are better, and it is a higher quality chocolate. It just has more of that chocolate taste and less of that baby vomit taste. You know the molecule I'm talking about.
I know it.
And
it's stinky.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sour. Yeah. And so I while I'm paying for the shipping for this 5-pack of Cadbury eggs, I just threw on so many things, and it was just toffees and colorful chews and Eccles cakes and fries, English cream, and so all of these candies now in London, you never see them because they're sold in the touristy shops, or I mean, they're not really like in the supermarkets, and I would love to just, go to Lancashire, go to Yorkshire and just like go to these old little candy factories and really get to the bottom of it. And maybe, work in some Cadbury information just to discuss it.
A little zoom out, talk about the candy industry in England and how it's been important. My grandfather's family was behind Taverner's candies, which you can still buy. These are traditional English toffees. That was my mom's maiden name, Taverner. And they're still around, so I would hope you'd grab a Taverner's.
I mean, that would be a really great episode of the podcast, just eating toffee on mic and just chewing through it.
You shared one with me in the elevator, and I was chewing on that. It was like really great 5 minutes of chewing.
Yeah.
Was that French or was that was English?
That was English.
Yeah.
I forget the producer, but it's like a caramelly type toffee just coated in a layer of lemony powdered sugar. And so that's a nice thing too. You get these little combinations you don't see in the US, lemon caramel. We don't get that a lot.
Yeah, the caramel mince really, I love that combination. That's something that Taverners had. Caramel mince. It works. It actually works. It always has that dusting of confectionery sugar.
Yeah,
on the outside,
because then it's handmade. That's a time bomb of a treat.
Yes,
you gotta keep it dry.
I love that. I Graydon Carter in 1997. Take that pitch. It's a good one. Well, let's wrap with a taste check on This Is Taste. We have guests about their certain taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire Fast and Furious taste check, media edition. Tammie, are you ready?
Yes.
What is the first thing you read in the morning, and where do you read it?
It's got to be Twitter in bed. Classic.
Still on Twitter, X.
Look, I don't call it X. It doesn't have the longevity that it used to. I used to be able to spend much longer periods of time on Twitter, but it still helps. And then maybe Reddit as a crutch, especially when Twitter got slow, I did start to revert to Reddit. Just it was more, especially with news, events, that kind of thing. You were just getting that more immediate commentary.
Yeah. What do you read on actual paper?
I get New York Magazine every 2 weeks.
And you pay for it, right?
No, I get that through the magazine.
They do the comps. So I've heard that
no.
magazines do not give out comps.
Look, well, I mean, they want you to know what it looks like, and they're in the office too.
Yeah.
So whenever you're in there, you can just grab a copy. But I read New York Magazine in print. I just got a copy of the first print of Vittles. I haven't cracked that open yet, but I think it'll go great with some of my English candy.
Great.
It is, I don't know if you've talked about Vittles on
Yeah. We've interviewed Jonathan in Print on Taste and Jonathan Nunn, the founder. Yes. Great.
And that's a great Substack. So it's great to see places going from Substack to paper.
Very nice. What about, are you doing any newspapers in print?
We used to get the Journal at my place.
Yeah.
And it was not my subscription, and I had mentioned it. My supers are I just call them the Gen Z boys. That's what they are. And I had mentioned it to them, it's does anybody, I would collect the newspapers and donate them to the animal shelter. And sometimes I would read the Journal as well. And it's nice, that they always have the financial stuff, but then there's always a little style culture piece on the bottom of the front page.
Yeah.
So I'd always at least take a peek at
Glance at that one.
Yeah.
What was your favorite food publication growing up?
Growing up, I mean, I read the food section in the Washington Post and then the Times whenever we would switch off. But I was not getting them delivered. My parents did not nurture that side of me. So yeah.
Any magazines? Were you ever reading anything, or were there any online publications for you?
Yes, actually, I was definitely reading a lot of food blogs, and so I was in high school, probably 2003, 2004. That's when I was in 9th grade, and I was big on David Leibovitz, Ideas in Food. Did you ever read that one?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I actually went back recently, and it's still a beautiful blog. It's WordPress or something, and just that format, and they were posting in February. But I used to read the blog of restaurants. Everybody had a blog. That stuff was good. There was a place in Chicago, I want to say it was L2O.
Oh, they had a blog. Interesting.
Yeah, and maybe it was that Michael Lyskanis was there, or maybe Michael Lyskanis had a blog. I used to read him, and this is probably also why I ended up going to pastry school when I was 18. I used to, because they just give you the deep, how many grams of isomalt in the ice cream base, just working through all of their strategy. And it would be these hardcore, molecular gastronomy was happening on these blogs back then.
Incredible recipes.
Let's hear it from Michael Laiskonis.
Let's hear from Le Bernardin chef for a long time, pastry chef, many other roles, was an instructor at ICE, I believe, or FCI, one of those two.
Yep.
And just an incredible mind. Yeah, I'd love to have Michael on the show. It's a great reminder. What was your relationship with PBS food programming growing up? Did you have a favorite or watch it?
I was a big watcher, and that was something like even I remember having the TV at my grandmother's house that just had the buttons on the TV that you would press to get the channel.
Yep.
And like PBS was one of the channels that would be on there. And so, yeah, I mean, and it's also family-friendly TV, especially for people who don't speak the same language. So you have the, English-speaking grandchild and then everybody else but they can watch a cooking show. So obviously Jacques and Julia with all of her guests. I remember even all of the guests. There was this one pastry chef and they were blowing balloons. They were dipping it in chocolate to like make the form, so 90s. And he made a joke about, I shouldn't have had that cigarette today. And that took that very seriously as like a little kid. But yeah, Jacques Torres.
Yeah.
I remember when Marcus had a show, early
definitely.
days. I was actually rewatching. I didn't have a TV at the time the show came on, but the Gwyneth Paltrow, Batali, Bittman show in Spain.
On the road in Spain.
Yes, because I wanted to hear Gwyneth's Castilian accent.
So listeners, folks on YouTube, if you were unfamiliar of that pairing of personality, this is not fiction. It's a real thing. Let's just say that one more time. Mario Batali, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Mark Bittman in a small car.
In España.
España, right. That's right.
And
let that sink in. That's some.
It happened.
It happened.
We lived through that, and you can watch clips of it. It is three personalities. It is.
Yeah.
And that is all you can really say about that.
I love that survey. You really were absorbing food media early on.
Look,
obviously.
I've always been interested in it. And I think it's just because it was what I saw women in my family. It was like the only creative outlet for them.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't really a reader. My dad was a librarian, but like the thing that my mom liked to do was cook, and it was like how she got to be expressive, and it was how I could like understand her related to her peers. Her food is better.
That's a nice memory. I like that a lot. Tammie, where are you with TikTok, IG Reels, and the way these platforms are covering restaurants?
So sometimes I do have a column called 5 Lines, and that is basically where I eat viral foods.
Yeah,
and that is usually harvested from TikTok because the TikTok virality is so primary to what Instagram is getting on all fronts. Yeah, so I'm actually working on one of those. I've got a really nice frozen treat that I just saw yesterday that I can't even. I'm actually very excited to be trying it.
Love it.
But so I think I've actually gotten so much positive feedback about this column about me finding things on TikTok that are really popular and then going out to find them, because so many people that aren't on TikTok don't really have like it's a reverse food media because I'm putting words to the video.
Yeah, but they haven't downloaded the app.
Yeah.
They have no idea this exists.
Exactly. Exactly. But I'm not really a big YouTube person unless I really have an idea of something I want to watch.
Yeah.
Like the other week where I'm like PBS, Gwyneth Paltrow, Mario Batali, let's go. But usually when I'm on YouTube, I have an objective. There are some good gems. So there was a show that I was watching. I think it's called. It's like two Italians. There's some adjective in the middle. It's not two fat Italians, but it's something like that. And it's hosted by, it's a BBC joint, I believe, and it's hosted by Gennaro. He's a big personality, and then Antonio Carlucci or something like that. There's a chain of Italian cafes in London.
Yeah.
That was founded by him, and he's the more esteemed white-haired guy. And then Antonio, he's bald.
I've seen it on TV in Italy.
It's a really great show. It's a really great show, and all of those episodes are on YouTube. So I had a phase with that. That's something I use YouTube basically to watch old food TV, or like on Ina. It's a French outlet, and they do clips on Instagram, but their YouTube has a lot of just vintage French cooking shows. There's this Maite is one of the chefs. There's a show with two women, and they'll just be like, they'll just be cooking horse that day. I mean, I haven't seen the horse episode, but just a humongous piece of meat and this kind of like crackly color film, and they're just going OG on it, like open hearth in the house, cooking on there. They have a lot of old Robuchon and all of the old French videos.
Shooting
so definitely
on
check that
8mm, on shooting on film.
Yeah, and just episodes and episodes.
In that French way. You really are diving in. This is amazing. Yeah, right about that. I love that.
I just I live it.
You live it. Last one, Tammie. Where do you want to be in 5 years in your media career?
5 years.
Yeah.
I think that in 5 years I might want to be writing about a distance a little bit wider than just New York City.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it'd be nice to get some travel. And I've never been to LA. I think it's one of the weirdest things about me.
It's surprising.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also an incredible story because you grew up in the East Coast, you lived in New York, you cover New York, and you obviously have read enough about LA to have like an interesting.
Usually when I travel, I go to Europe because I don't like to drive.
Sure.
And it's truly like my first time in LA. That would be a great piece.
Yeah, let's put that in the ether. Food writers talking about food writing. Food writers talking about food
Even
assignments.
for a place like New York Magazine, who knows?
Yeah, I always love when New York Mag likes to dip into other cities. I mean, that horses story, that was a New York Mag story.
Exactly.
That was a New York Mag story.
We take gossip from everywhere.
I know you do.
I just want people to know that.
Yeah. Find some good gossip in LA.
I'm sure they've got it.
It's not really your remit, though. You write about profiles in restaurants and culture and reviews.
Yeah, I'm more of a Europe girl.
It's
just different over there.
So I'm hearing you want to maybe expand outside of New York. You want to travel a bit.
Yeah, I got a taste for travel. I got a taste for the world. And as much as I do think we have our own little magic kingdom of global chains in New York, there is just something about just having a taste of everything everywhere. I just want everything. That's what I'm trying to say.
I love that, Tammie. What about a book? What about a book?
What about a book?
We're in Penguin Random House. We gotta talk books to close this.
It's true. I think that I would first probably write a book about myself.
Yeah.
I used to want to write a cookbook, and then that was kind of pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I think the amount of just explosion of food content in every single crevice has kind of I think while it's still clearly garnering views and doing good work, it's kind of just like diminished my taste for it, or maybe just my taste of sharing my kitchen. Like it feels like, everybody's kitchens are out there, so now privacy is kind of cool. And because privacy is cool, I want to write a memoir, I guess. I don't know.
I like the logic that you like, the path that you just took just there.
Yeah. I mean, I get people interested in me, and then maybe I'll be able to write the cookbook that I want to write. That's the thing. I would not I would not I don't want to give up creative control when it comes to something like that. So I would really want to be in a place where I could actually write the cookbook that I want. And yeah.
I hope you do both.
Yeah, well, Random House, somebody might be listening.
Somebody might be listening. Tammie Teclemariam, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.